Welcome one, welcome all to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens right here on the Sound Strategy Network. I am Bridger, I'll be your host today. We will be taking a look at the deep questions of Star Citizen on this show. That's what we do every time, and today is no different. We have a fall news roundup for you because we have been gone for over a month now, and it's time we found out exactly what has been going on while we've been absent. And with me are my two good friends, Callie and Gray. Welcome, guys.
Howdy, y'all.
How come I can't hear Gray again? What happened?
Oh, you can. My mic's just screwing with you.
Oh. Is he just sitting there mouthing at me, pretending to be muted,
Pretty
and
much.
screwing up my intro again? I'll have to do it for the third time.
See how many times I can do this in a row. That's a try.
Yeah. All right. So, as I was saying, we've got a lot of stuff that's happened over the last month or so. We had to skip 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, Gray was not available, and neither was Callie, and I wasn't feeling so good. So, but we're back, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Bad case of bronchitis.
Yeah. No worries. We're here. We're ready to go. 2.0 is not dropped yet, so we can't talk about that in its entirety, but it's coming soon. So
2 weeks.
Let's start with our life in the verse segment, or in this case, outside of the verse segment. So, what have you guys been up to recently while we've been waiting for 2.0? Callie, what have you been doing?
Well, working a whole lot. I got a promotion, so I'm now officially in charge of a bunch of people. Hopefully they're not watching this because that would be embarrassing. Oh, wait, no, it wouldn't. Other than that, some Heroes of the Storm when I get a chance to play. A little bit of Arena Commander, trying to just test out the various ships. And then I've been out of the gym, more or less, because I have a pretty severe shoulder injury.
Ooh.
So if you see me cringing randomly, that is why. It's a 2 to 12 week ETA on getting healed.
So it's part of the new Tales of Citizens drinking game. Every time you notice Callie cringe, take a drink.
Yeah, that would be the time to drink.
If he actually outright swears, that's 2 drinks. So
we call that
Callie to drink with you.
Yeah, no, that may be true. Although with medication, alcohol is a bad thing. Rectal bleeding is apparently the symptom there.
Oh, that'll keep me on my medication.
So I'm gonna avoid that.
Rectal bleeding. Tales of rectal bleeding. You heard it here first, folks.
Let me get the camera.
I haven't gone to professional podcast school, but I'm sure in episode, session 1 of podcasting 101, they're
mention that.
Topics to avoid on your show. Anal leakage, rectal bleeding.
Not to tell your viewers you're going to show them
no.
2 minutes of a show start.
The good news is I'm not drinking anymore, so I don't have to worry about it, right?
Yes. Well, anyway, Gray, what have you been up to?
I've been busy. I have the bronchitis and all that and the kid, but I have been playing the new StarCraft 2 expansion, Legacy of the Void. I've actually been very impressed. The campaign has flowed relatively decently. I don't know if it's quite as good as Wings of Liberty or Heart of the Swarm, but I've been enjoying it anyway, and the moment that they let me select Reavers as a unit to replace Colossi, just huge smile on my face. I have been worm bombing so many maps now. I love it. Other than that, Guild Wars 2. I did finally make it through the personal story last night, and say I'm disappointed would be an unfortunate understatement. I feel like they've done a wonderful job with what they fixed on World v. World, and they've added those new classes, and they've done a great thing with the Guild Hall, and I think for the longevity of the game, they've done the right things. But that personal story ending sucked. That was the most anticlimactic thing I've seen ArenaNet do.
Worse than Zaitan?
It was way worse than Zaitan. Zaitan, you at least had blimps, and it felt like you were doing something relatively epic on a large scale. This was like Blackwing Lair Dragon Man, who happens to be shorter, fighting you inside of his own brain. That was kind of his brain, but not.
Well, that sounds very clear and understandable. Okay.
Yeah. The only hard part about the encounter, and I will give them credit about this, is the shield yourself or get airborne to avoid getting insta-gibbed. At which point you jump, and then you're in the air with your glider.
Huh. Okay. So,
and that's the mechanic.
Have you done Dragon Stand with Us, the final battle of the 4th zone of the Maguma jungle?
Not yet.
Because that sounds way more interesting and epic than what you just described. Because I've played through that one, and that was a lot of fun.
And I think that's it. They've done a much better job with the multiplayer content this time through, which, hey, good on them. It gives people a reason to keep playing. But they really screwed the pooch on the single player. That's
too bad.
I'm still very, very happy with the changes they've made to a lot of things, and I love playing my scrapper. So,
Well, I have been playing a lot of Rocket League recently. I have been enjoying the hell out of it. And
that is such a good game.
It's addictive as hell. I just made Bronze 2, which is great. But I don't think I'm ever going to be good at the game. The number of times that I like go for an aerial and just fly right by it seems to have been increasing as I attempt more aerials. So every time that happens, it's just like a little part of me dies inside because I was like, this is going to be awesome, and then it's not.
And that totally misses.
So
that is that's kind of par for the course. Par for the course when you're trying to fly a car, however.
Tell that to my DeLorean, man. Tell that to my DeLorean.
This is what they need. They need Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. You get up in the air and little wings fold out.
The next
this
DLC.
Needs to be it. DLC
Disney
should be
tie-ins.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Herbie the Love Bug.
Yep.
The classics.
There you go.
Props if you can get Lindsay Lohan as the driver. The good Lindsay Lohan, not the coke-addicted one that came out later.
No, the one that was in Mean Girls. Right?
Yes.
Yes, that was the good one. All right, so anyway,
Yeah.
The other thing that I've been doing lately is jamming out to the soundtrack from the musical Hamilton because I'm a nerd like that. And I was like, wait a minute, another musical set of the Revolutionary War? I'm in! But this one's really interesting. It's like a
and
hip-hop...
this brings us to our next podcast, Tales of Musicals.
It's like a hip-hop / R&B styling musical, which is not something you'd normally think of. And the only white person in the entire cast is King George. Every other member of like the founding fathers, their family, it's either like Latino or black. And it's really interesting from that point of view.
Well, yeah, the musical theater watching population, largely composed of people, relating to the king. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, they're gonna sympathize with that character. Okay. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about. Let's move on to some quick announcements. Feedback at talesofshow.com is, oh my god, it's a Kilrathi! Look out! Cat attack!
Talesofshow.com?
Talesofshow.com is talesofshow.com is the new website that I am using to put the Star Citizen show and the Guild Wars 2 show together. Talesofcitizens.com is soon going to be redirecting to that, and as a result, we're going to have a new podcast feed that is on the new site. It's not quite yet, but by the time we have the next show in 2 weeks, that will be the case. Okay, Kat, you can just go ahead and sleep right here while we're doing the show. That's fine.
I like the tail sticking up right there.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Talesofshow.com is going to be the new domain. We're going to keep this current podcast feed for a couple of weeks just so people can catch up. We'll do a couple of shows with it so that you can know, but eventually we'll move it over because it's costing me $15 a month to do that one versus $8 a month to host both shows with Squarespace, if that's what I'm doing. Not a Squarespace ad. So
for those of you watching right now on YouTube Gaming, by all means, donate $1 to Bridger. Won't you please think of the hosting fees?
I don't think you can do that. I've been thinking about setting up a Patreon.
Showed up. Know that those pennies go toward helping Bridger.
Right here.
There's a
bottom of the chat on YouTube. I can go ahead and I can send you $1 US.
I did not know this.
And it's gonna sit there and it's gonna go around and it says, oh, do you want to do YouTube fan bundling? And then it's asked for credit card that I don't have on me, so you don't get $1.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was a thing, but that's pretty cool. I like it.
Thing.
I got a link to the YouTube gaming one more then. Anyway, let's get to Star Citizen. Yes. I'm sorry, guys. Remember, a separate law is still the homework. If in 2 weeks we still don't have any 2.0 Arena Commander to talk about, we'll probably do a rundown of the A Separate Law story that's set within the Star Citizen universe. So check that one out and read through it if you don't want to deal with the spoilers that will be on next show.
Spoilers.
Potentially next show, depending on when AC 2.0 comes out.
And for those of you who know how just hideous I am to these stories when we go through them, please know I actually enjoyed this story, even though I will lambast it. So
it will be lambasted. Lambasted?
Lambasted, lambasted, bastardized, right. Whatever. Yeah.
So let's start with some of the stuff that's been happening in the last month or so. Something that I really appreciated was this. It is a tube map of the galaxy, and there have been quite a lot of these, but this one is by far my favorite. It really does give you a sense of scale and sort of where everything is. And the other thing it points out is that we're surrounded, man. There's aliens on all sides. If you look at this map, you got the Xi'an in the top, and you got the Banu down here in the bottom, and then you've got the Vandul on the left. Of course, there are more than just like top, left, and bottom sides in space, but that still does give you a kind of point of reference that they do seem to be all around us.
I don't know. I think we're looking at like a patchwork of races, because if you look in the top left corner, you've got
you're right. There is a Banu
the
there.
Brana, and there's a Xi'an up there, and it connects to Kronos, which is human held, and so I'm saying it's not a contiguous picture, or there are wormholes that aren't shown that are known about.
That's actually the case as well. Yeah. We've been told there are jump points between systems that are known systems that we may have to actually work with.
To make it exciting, we are surrounded. It's going to be a whole Custer's Last Stand redo here.
Yeah. So I did put the source that for that in the show notes. If you want to check that out, you can find the show notes at the bottom of the doobly-doo here if you're on YouTube, or you can also find it on the website talesofshow.com.
Now, I do like the format. I do like the format for it, though, because I can feel at home taking the London Underground or the BART, the Metro, the L line, wherever. It looks just like a subway map, which bodes well, hopefully, for the final version of the space transport system we were promised.
And so I don't want to give credit where credit is due. ZAT, Z-H-A-T-T, ZAT.
Yep.
Or is it supposed to be like Zhat? Zhat? I don't know, but I think it's one of those things. Is the person who created this, and it's very, very cool, and definitely check it out. Also, I happened to catch this little back and forth on the Reddit, and by happen to catch, I mean read, because it's posted indefinitely. Like, not like I happened to cross it and then it was gone, like it's always there. But anyway, somebody said, Luke Du said, it bothered me that Sol wasn't in the middle. I think I'm a space racist now. And somebody said, it's good to see heliocentricity is still alive and well. And it's like, no, not space racist, spacist. Yeah. It's not racist when it's in space. All right,
Besides,
so
if you're racist against alien species, it's speciest, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it's specious no, because that's an argument that is not.
That would be an irrational fear. This is entirely rational.
Oh, I see.
Kidding. Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of specious. Is an argument. So specious versus speciest. Please send us your 5-paragraph essay on these to feedback at talesofshow.com. All right, so next thing we're going to be talking about here is the Cutlass. We got to sharpen it up, they said. We got to do something about this thing. They had an idea on what this ship was going to be like. And then when they actually made it in 3 dimensions and put engines on it, it didn't fly like it was supposed to, essentially.
But I bought a Cutlass Blue with the promise that it would be a great pirate raider, and also be a police craft, and also be a good fighter, and be good at transporting. And it's time.
It's interesting to see, because they did finally crack the whip and say, okay, people have wanted this ship to be quite literally everything since it was announced. And I don't want to really put the burden on the literally 1,000 pages of ranting that is the Cutlass concern thread. But people wanted the ship to be a cargo hauler, potentially. They wanted it to be a space superiority fighter on par with the Hornet. They wanted it to be more maneuverable than something like the Hornet, when it originally was. Some people have changed their tune a little bit on that. And then they wanted it to have all the boarding and all the other things. And that's been kind of problematic for CIG.
Well, CIG hasn't really gone out and addressed saying it's ridiculous that you're going to have something that is more maneuverable than a Hornet in something the size of a Freelancer with more firepower than a Cutlass, so we can appease all of you who took, Commerce Raider to mean something above and beyond what we originally meant it to. So now, their failure of PR is on them. But that said, it's time. I'm glad to see it, because now it's getting to be flyable, and people were disappointed in its first outing in Arena Commander. So it's good. It's a
But
good
now
chance.
there will be that willingness to say as well, this is a slightly larger ship. You're not flying a Hornet when you're flying this. And they've said if somebody needs that light fighter feel, they might let you trade for the Buccaneer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I think, as PR goes, I think that might be the right choice for them. Because I know there will be people who will say, oh, they're abandoning the Cutlass. No. They're focusing the Cutlass on what it was intended to be. And it was not intended to be the most fast, most maneuverable, tiny space superiority fighter. I think saying that it is a large commerce raider that can do boarding and can do cargo, just generally speaking, or, a whole bunch of people in cells is a way better niche to put the ship in than trying to say, okay, let's pare it down until it's no longer capable of doing anything but small dogfighting.
Yeah.
I think its role is not to dogfight against any single seat fighter, right? It's not going to win against a Hornet. It's not going to win against a 300i even, but what it might win against is a transport, like a Freelancer Max.
Yeah.
It could probably win against that. That's the idea. It's going to be more maneuverable. It's going to be more maneuverable than a hull. It's going to be more maneuverable than a Freelancer. It's going to be maybe more maneuverable than a Constellation, but that's a space superiority fighter, right?
Is in that Cutlass rework topic, for those who haven't read it, they have talked about it not being able to go toe-to-toe with something like a Freelancer.
Oh.
Because it's not going to be as well-armed.
So
it
maybe just the hull series, like a hull B, is the target that this thing would go after?
No, I think it's still actually relatively decent against small fighters, but it's not something that you're going to want to run solo necessarily.
Oh, that's right. They did mention, this thing's going to be cheaper than all of those, essentially.
It's a Drake ship.
It's a Drake ship. So you bring two of these for a Freelancer, essentially.
And that's exactly it. I think this is going to be one of those ships where, yes, it's a commerce raider, so it's not necessarily made for dogfighting, but it's made to say, let's take 2 or 3 together as a pack, and then go fight against a Freelancer or go fight against some Hull series ships, because you can catch them and you can disable them, and then you actually have room to store the cargo.
Yeah. Now, if they want to really push the pirate ship aspect, they might give this ship the ability to provide some refueling to single seat fighters that are with it, that are actually like the Buccaneer fighter type, or the Hornets that are being used for piracy. Like a mini roll that uses its own fuel to top off others. It can't get its own fuel like the actual fueling ship whose name escapes me at the moment. Thank you, Starfare. Something like that. Actually kind of expand its support role as a pirate ship. So you could literally have a small strike force built around a Cutlass. That would be an awesome use for something like the Cutlass, and you can still stick cargo on it that you can't stick into a Hornet, or you can't stick into a Vanguard or something like that. But one-on-one, having it go toe-to-toe against fighters and come out on top, even with 2 people, that might make it a little bit overpowered as far as its piracy role goes.
It might, and at the same time, there's also a question of the weapons and the forward focus on this thing. If you look at the Cutlass in all the redesigns and everything else, you've got your tractor things in the front, and you've got the big turret. So right now, people are running about 2 sucker punches and then 2 of something else on this thing or something like that, or maybe 1 giant cannon on top of it. I've seen that on the 1.3, pretty funny. That's not a lot of guns compared to other ships.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's
especially the dedicated fighter craft.
Yeah. So, it does have its trade-offs. It's not necessarily the most well-armed ship in the world. And that's fine. It doesn't need to be for it to fulfill its niche.
So the other thing that I found really interesting in here is people pointed out that, you can look at the back and you see the very maneuverable sort of thrusters on the axle there. And then it's got sort of like the baby thrusters underneath that have their own little axle. And there was a line that I noticed in this Cutlass rework thing where they said, long story short, the original IFCS system was never written to account for thrusters with thrusters on them. Ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit is now a concept artist at CIG. Confirmed.
Yeah.
It never really occurred to me that those were thrusters with thrusters on them, but that's really what we got right there. And that's why they didn't
'Cause you
work.
Those open up and
Yeah, they don't work in the actual game currently. You don't see. I mean, if there's
Yeah.
any visuals, they don't actually affect the thrust of the ship. That's not currently programmed because the IFCS, they said in that article, like literally can't work with them. It's completely screws up. So the new
Cutlass-
IFCS, which we're going to get to, theoretically will take them into account.
I think the Cutlass is the perfect example, as a lot of folks have noticed, of the pitfalls of open development. Because people demanded to see their Cutlass flyable. Absolutely demanded to see this ship ready to go. And CIG said, okay, we'll put it out in whatever state we can do. And that state was not something people wanted.
No. But the Cutlass was one of the most popular packages, even in the Kickstarter, and it was released
Because they put
late
the
in
word
Kickstarter
pirate on it. No
Pirate
matter
in
what,
it,
it's
yeah.
going to be popular when you do that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's where they're running into a lot of trouble as far as the community fallout. But I want to make a statement here for those of you who actually want to go after piracy. The only way to be a pirate in style, real style, is to pirate in your Constellation Phoenix.
Okay.
Nothing says pirate and wenches like a hot tub.
Well, in that case, shouldn't the Origin 850 jump
Probably.
really be the highest style pirate?
I
Like
think
the
we can go for
Pirates
that.
of
There's an
Penzance
argument
pirate,
to be
bringing
made,
it
yeah.
back to
Could be a
musicals.
thing.
Gilbert and Sullivan pirates.
Yeah.
All right.
Back to the musical.
So Tactical in the Twitch chat says, the Cutlass is supposed to be a support ship, not a 1v1 ship, but the Caterpillar is the support ship. That's why the Cutlass fits in a weird situation, right? If you say the Cutlass is a support ship, is the Caterpillar there to support the support ship?
Well, and here the thing is partly that the Cutlass is kind of a jack of all trades kind of ship. It's in the same sort of boat as the Freelancer, but smaller.
Yeah.
So
And cheaper.
and cheaper,
Yeah.
much cheaper. So you start looking at the Freelancer and like, well, this is a jack of all trades ship for exploration and shipping, and I guess missile boating.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily expect the Freelancer to get in dogfights.
Yeah.
And you also don't expect it to do quite as much heavy-duty hauling or have as much modularity as a Caterpillar or a Starfarer.
So
And
I
then you
guess
move over
the
to
Cutlass needs to
Yeah.
get reclassified. It's a fighting transport, like fighting with an apostrophe, not with a G. I think that would get it fit a little bit more. Anyway,
And it does fulfill the role of things like police cruiser because you get a little more range, you've got a little more storage in the back, you can have a couple of guns on it and a decent power plant compared to some of the other ships. That's not too bad, and you can board. I mean, the boarding's a big thing.
all
Yeah,
right.
I think especially for a police role, that would be a huge thing, which makes you wonder how the Avenger got its police role set up, other than as an interceptor. Not that I've heard much of the Avenger as the police ship recently, so.
Yeah, that's kind of, they haven't been referring to it that way anymore. And wasn't it also like the training ship?
Yeah.
It still has a training variant they're working on with the 2 seats. I think the reason it probably had a police cruiser role and the way that it still fits that is the fact that it's just kind of, it's 3 forward-facing guns. It's 3 forward-facing guns with a big back end that you can stick a little bit of cargo that was illegitimately picked up or a person in. That's basically it.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what it is, though. I think you're right. I think you bring your if this rumored Drake fighter is something that comes along, you bring a Caterpillar for your large cargo storage and other like more maybe the Caterpillar is going to be more like a cheap salvage type ship, right? Like it's going to have the kinds of things that the Reclaimer would have, but on a pirate level. And then so that's your like salvage type ship that can cut pieces off that you can repair or sell or whatever. And then the Cutlass would be a fighting transport, which is part way between. It's not going to win a dogfighting contest, but it's got a few more and better guns than a pure hull B, for example. And
I bet if
then
you have
come
4 of them, you can overwhelm most well-armed transports.
Yeah, so you could bring what you need anyway. So the Cutlass is getting reworked. We're going to see more. Actually, they said we're not going to see much of the rework. Like they reworked the graphics so that it's not as laggy to other people playing the game, because it was taking up so much memory because it had been not optimized properly.
It had all of those internal components that weren't being displayed,
but were still being rendered.
But were still being
Yeah. So there
Bad
is
idea.
one lore-based issue with the Buccaneer as the Drake fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Drake's cover is they aren't a fighter manufacturer. They're a utility ship manufacturer.
That's not true. The
Really?
Drake, the
No,
Cutlass
militia.
was originally done as a militia
ship,
and
yeah.
UEE
Okay.
contract ship. The
Okay,
initial
so that-
idea for the Cutlass, if you read on the back lore, was that it was supposed to be a fighter,
Okay.
and the UEE kind of laughed it off. So
Okay, that makes sense.
having a Buccaneer would be their response to that, and basically saying, well, now we need to have a legitimate fighter in our lineup because the UEE didn't want this one.
But they released the Cutlass as not a fighter because they don't have a military contract to sell fighting ships. So
Well,
I'm curious how they're going to make a cover for the Buccaneer, either like a courier ship or something like that.
You know,
But it can't be
say
obvious
it's a,
in what it
You can
is.
say it's a personal transport, because keep in mind, you have the 325A, which is effectively a
Mhm.
fighter. They're just saying it's a well-armed personal transport that a militia could use, and that's fine. The UE is all good with that.
So they're gonna try and steal that role.
Yeah, because they can compete. I bet it's going to be cheaper than the 300 series.
Absolutely.
Pretty sure a giant bag of diamonds is cheaper than the 300 series is at this point.
Glad I got my 325A when it was on sale then. All right.
Giant bag of diamonds. You heard it here first, folks. Anniversary
Well,
sale.
that's the ammo loadout.
We're no longer taking money in PayPal form. We will now
Fires
require
diamonds.
all money to be sent in via diamonds. And only for Origin ships, though.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
if you don't have a giant pile of diamonds lying around in a velvet bag, then you're not Origin material.
If you have to ask how many diamonds this costs, this is not the right ship for you.
Exactly. All right, so moving on, I did find this very cool video with a great suggestion, and I'm going to try and give credit here to Physics and Games channel, who is suggesting that you do not use regular mode when you're trying to land or take off with your ship. You use decoupled mode so that you can fly like Han Solo. Like, this is what it looks like, this kind of jerky, like, up and down, like, go, stop, so you don't go too fast. But
This is a problem with keyboards specifically because it's analog
but
input.
he's
And
using a
It's an all or
keyboard and
nothing.
mouse for that. And what
Yeah.
he's saying is that you
Use
can do
decoupled.
this with decoupled mode. With decoupled mode,
yeah.
you just get a little bit of speed, then you hit decouple, and then you can just move with your strafing and not have to worry about being jerky.
This is something that one of our members in Legacy, Panada, has been on the warpath about for months. She was pissed when decouple got disabled during landing mode.
Oh, okay.
See, the trick with this is you can currently do landing decoupled, but you can't have landing mode on. So your freaking
I
landing gear doesn't
see.
come out to the last possible second. And this is something that CIG honestly should and probably will fix, is the manual deployment of landing gear. For me, this is less of an issue because I have a wheel that's actually bound specifically to strafe up and down. So I'm going to do this for the time I do it every show. If I turn this just a little bit, I have a little bit of speed going down, lots of speed going down, slamming into the ground. And then in the middle of the wheel is off, and then a little bit of speed going up, all the speed going up. So for me, I don't have to do decouple to do just a little bit of analog input up permanently or down permanently.
Cat, that's my microphone. Thanks.
That is a purring cat.
Sorry. She decided to investigate. All right.
The trick is if you have a wheel, or a stick that has strafe up down built in or something like that, this isn't a huge problem for you. But for keyboard users, you absolutely should get used to those decoupled landings because they are way better.
You're right. I feel like when you turn on landing mode, it should put you in decoupled mode instead of the other way around. It shouldn't disable it. It should put it in decoupled mode.
Yeah.
The whole my immersion, like everything would look better if they forced you into decoupled mode for landing. You know how, like, in movies, they have those really cool moments where the car is, like, driving down the street at super speed, and then it does, like, the 180 directly into the parallel parking spot? Like, I want to see the equivalent of that, but in Star Citizen, where it's, like, just a craft, like, screaming straight at the landing pad at a 90-degree angle, and it just does, like, this, like, spin 180, puts the thruster straight at the landing pad, and, like, comes down and slows down to at full reverse velocity at exactly the right thing, and then just goes and just pops down at the last 2 meters per second. That's somebody's got to make that video, right? I just want to see that. It's got to be
eventually.
an M50.
It'll probably be White Snake. Let's be honest here.
That's true.
Once spotting's in the game, you're going to see a lot of those videos.
Yeah. So
I
thought that was pretty cool.
I think that is really cool, and I agree that decouple landings need to come back as just a general thing for keyboard users. And for you joystick or HOTAS users, find a way to bind that strafe up and down. You will love yourself for it. It'll feel much better being able to say, I'm going to go down at 1 meter a second and just be good.
Yep.
It feels nice.
I'm going to suggest, if you can get it, get that left-handed stick and make that your binding for that. It's well worth the investment of $20.
Yeah. So here is an interesting bit. We now know that Arena Commander 2.0 is content locked. They are only working on the fixing of bugs at this point. Ben posted a thing that said this release is now content locked, and we are testing and fixing the potential release builds. So they're just going on fix bug, release test,
weekly
etc.
updates.
Yeah. So that is good news.
Before the hype train takes off here, Star Marine was also content locked.
That's true.
Just to put that out there. I'm not saying they're not going to release it. I'm saying deep breath, be still thy beating heart. It'll take a while.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a close-up on Captain Wet Blanket over here.
Number one Star Wars fan. Keep that in mind. I've got it in writing.
It says so right on the
You can't
shirt.
argue with it.
That's like that picture that says, use the Force, Luke, and it's a quote to Gandalf, and it actually shows a picture of Dumbledore. Somebody's done one of those where it goes like 17 levels deep. It's incredible. Okay. Anyway, for those of you playing the home game, his shirt says Star Wars #1 fan with a picture of the Enterprise on it. Okay, so there's also the point and problem that for all of you people out there hoping and waiting to get to the Star Marine as soon as possible, the unfortunate news is that the FPS programmer fell off his bicycle and broke his wrist. But a programmer does not need a wrist to program, do they? What could possibly...
That's why you have the voice attack, right? You can just set that up through the programming by dictation.
Yes, programming by dictation.
So pour out a 40 today, those of you who are still drinking, for our fallen comrade, the lead FPS programmer. Hallowed be his apparently unknown name.
I've never understood what pouring out some beer is supposed to do. Is that like a prayer to Gaia, the Earth Spirit? Like, here, drink of your own blood and heal our good friend. Anyway.
Yeah, you got me.
Moving on.
You're trying to get the ground drunk, so its aim is worse, and it doesn't hit people you care about.
Ah, okay.
It doesn't jump up and just whack them.
That'll work.
Okay, perfect.
So let's take a quick look here at this thing. This is some really cool work.
Oh, yeah.
This is every ship that we know about that you can purchase, I should say, I believe. And every
have
ship
been able to.
Yeah, it's showing the current progress based on colors. Although I'm told that can you see the difference in these colors, Gray, between the yellow and the green? Somebody said they couldn't, and this was a problem.
I was unaware that there was yellow and green on it.
Okay, well, you got yellow, and green. The guy redid it in a colorblind safe mode or something like that, but I don't have that one handy.
The yellow is flyable, or the yellow's
hangar ready,
and the
green is flight ready, yeah.
Flyable.
Okay.
So we've got the Idris in the top left corner. You've got the Hull E, Hull D, Hull C, Hull B, Hull A. Those are easy to find.
It is a Hull A.
And the Endeavor right there in the middle. And then, what is that? Oh, the Orion mining vessel. And what is this on the side here? The Genesis.
Yeah, pretty
Forgot
enough.
about that one. The Glaive, the Cartual, the Merlin. Oh, and it's got them organized. Okay, I see. They got them organized by manufacturer now. What is this big block up here? The Banu Merchantman? Couldn't find a good picture of it, I guess.
Well, it's because
this is 3D models. This is what you can actually view
Right.
in the Holo Viewer. So if there's no Holo Viewer model, which a lot of the old ships like the Caterpillar, which have been around for forever, they never put it in the Holo Viewer. You're not going to be able to have that model to pull and put into this comparison chart.
You're right. Yeah.
So the downside is the ship I'm looking forward to most is the Banu. So I saw this picture and then just put my head in my hands and accepted it.
So you know what this reveals? Looking at this reveals that the developers hate MISC, and there will never be a good MISC ship because there is currently a flyable ship of every single variety except MISC. And I think
I'm wondering how soon the Reliant's coming through, because you guys saw the takeoff and landing video, right?
Yeah, and they've got the model here.
Oh, that was a thing of beauty.
And then the other thing that is revealed here is, damn, there are a lot of ships. Like
you're missing the third most important point here. Aegis is the current manufacturer of the Airbus A380, the FA-18A, and a semi-truck.
It's
yes.
Aegis does seem to have a lot of ships to its name, even when you take out the existing comparison parts of that picture.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. Aegis semi-truck rover confirmed.
I do like how they actually specify the variant of the FA-18 they're showing there, because from this view, I mean, the EF doesn't look that different from the A. I'll be honest with you.
Probably not.
Someone just had an aneurysm because you said that. There is someone in chat right now who wants to prove you wrong. I'm going to wait and see who that is.
It doesn't look that. It doesn't matter.
You know the other thing that occurred to me? We haven't seen a new ship commercial in a while. What is that?
We have not.
What did they do? I think they were doing Gary Oldman's speech is what they were doing. Yeah.
No, Chris talked about
all those
this.
voice actors are
No, Chris talked about this. The original commercials, the ship commercials, were used as proof of concept for being able to do cutscenes and being able to do things for the Squadron 42 content that those people would then be working on. Because I think all the commercials ended up coming out of the same people that are now doing the Squadron 42 gameplay. So we're not seeing any more commercials, and probably won't for some time, specifically because those people are doing their jobs.
Although we have heard there's going to be another installment of Galactic Gear.
Yeah,
really?
That is fun.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
apparently there will be another one of those for one of the ships. I'm hoping for the Merlin personally, just because it's tiny and blows up easily.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Speaking of like those FPS in-engine cutscenes and things like that, do you think they're going to go the Half-Life route of having all cutscenes be in first person, in character? I feel like that's something that Chris would do.
Well, think about his history with the Wing Commander series. He was one of the first that did the video spliced into the game for cutscenes, and then other cutscenes were
that, by the way.
It was a definite artistic take.
I thought Red Alert did that before anybody else.
No, I thought
was it right? It might have been right around the same
Westwood
time.
was after Wing Commander.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was after then.
I would like to note, for anybody who's interested, if you missed it in the news, right now on Good Old Games, GOG.com, just to plug this in, this does in no way benefits CIG or anybody else, except for GOG. They're selling the entire Wing Commander saga, the original all the way through Privateer, for $10 total.
Wow. So if you want some nostalgia...
If you want some nostalgia, or you want some nostalgia somewhere down the road, it's $10 freaking for like the best series of games that were made in the 90s. That's right.
So the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter series is on sale too?
I already bought TIE Fighter from them, so.
Fair enough. No, so I would not be surprised to see him do cutscenes, in-engine, taking you out of it, and then having, like in Squadron 42, having some kind of byplay with the various people talking while you're flying missions and that. But his history has been to literally cut it in as a video, pre-render it, and do the whole sequence in that. Now, is that immersion breaking or not? That's a separate issue. If it is, they'll switch it. My guess would be he'll use the right tool for the job after they go through and review it.
Sure. I feel like because he's always made a big deal about this being a first-person universe and everything being immersive, I feel like he is going to have everything be from the point of view of your character. The challenge there is, how do you make sure the character is looking at the important thing of this? Like it's the difficulty of shooting a movie where the player is controlling the camera and you can't tell him ahead of time, hey, by the way, there's going to be something coming in from the left here that's like this big important piece to this whole scene. Like, you make sure you're looking that way. Other games have tried to solve that problem by like having a button pop up at the bottom that says press X to focus on blah blah blah, and while they're talking to you about it. So that is a difficult challenge to solve. How do you give the player control and yet guarantee that they see the things that are going to make the story the most enjoyable?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say take away player control for when it's important cinematically, and
but
when
leave
it's
it in
just
first
something
person.
Leave it in first person, and when it's just something like a conversation between two people you hear as you go by or hear over the radio, then you just keep flying. You have full control, but you still hear this piped in over the speakers or whatever.
Speaking of that, I feel like what they're gonna do, and I've never really liked it any of the games where they have done this, they're gonna do that thing where a little picture appears in the top left corner of your screen with the person talking while you get those radio commands. Kind of like, I don't know if it started in Star Fox, but it's like Slippy appears and says, "Do a barrel roll." Like, what?
Yeah.
But they've done that in a ton of games too. And the most recent one that I can remember is Titanfall. Like when you're in a Titan or whatever, there's some like controller up there. It's like Titanfall in 30 seconds, and they'll like pop in just for that one phrase and then disappear again. I always found that super distracting and less. I don't know. They tried to add character to those people because otherwise they're just voices in your head. But I feel like doing that between missions is much more effective.
I would guess that they might follow the X3 route, which was, for the pseudo cutscene stuff that you did, which is also a flight sim. They had that little pop in, and you could also like lock your view of different cameras. You could have 7 or 8 different views in your HUD of cameras aimed at targets or ships you were escorting or whatever it was going to be, so you could see what was going on physically and also your orientation to them at the time.
Somebody in chat just wrote Commander Keen, and I am trapped in a wave of nostalgia. That may have been the first computer game I ever played, was Commander Keen on the library computer. No, that's not true, because before that, my dad had a giant 386 portable computer that weighed like 40 pounds and was as big as a suitcase. And like, that had one of those really tiny, like 8-inch green screen monitors, and it had 2 games on it that we played the crap out of. It had Paratrooper.
Was one of them Oregon Trail?
No, it had Digger and Paratrooper, and we played the hell out of those. Paratrooper was like Missile Command, but different. It was kind of interesting. So, anyway, nostalgia trip over. Let's get back to the Star Citizen here, because...
Hey, Bridger, you want a nostalgia trip? Number Munchers.
No, I never played that one. Can't get me there.
Never played that?
Nope.
Early 1980s math game. Yeah.
I remember it. I remember it poorly and with great anger. All right, so
anyway, the big story that you may or may not have read, if you guys haven't been paying attention, is that the flight model is being adjusted. Not minor tweaks, but some fairly significant changes for Alpha and Persistent Universe 2.0. There was a very large, long article as well as a video to accompany it and describe the changes. And we're going to I'll give you a kind of an overview now, and then we'll discuss it here. But
yes,
you can go and read the full article and check out the full notes there. All the links are in the show notes, which again are in the doobly-doo on the YouTube, and they're also on the website.
Before anybody starts to tune out, these are big changes, folks.
Yeah.
This is a summary that you should pay attention to solely because it will vastly change the way the game currently flies.
Right, so let's talk about specifically, right now all we have is what they're calling space combat mode. And they kind of talked a little bit about this at CitizenCon, but we got a lot more detail in this article. So in the future you're going to get precision mode that you can enter into, which basically very much limits your maximum velocity, but gives you much more specific control, so you can land land much better. It's specifically designed for landing and takeoff, but you might also use it for docking with another ship or for docking with a ship in order to get fuel, for example. So precision mode is fairly straightforward from that point of view. And then you have cruise mode, which is essentially going to be just like space combat mode, but but it's in the opposite direction of precision. Instead of losing speed and gaining control, you're going to lose control and gain speed. So cruise mode is going to let you essentially go up to about 1,000 meters per second right now. And to put that into perspective, I think the fastest ship is the M50 with 300. Is that right?
No,
or is it
it's
290?
the 350R with 300.
Oh,
The
350R,
M50
sorry.
with 290.
So 290. So
Still
that
three
is
times the
a pretty,
speed.
three and a half times the speed of most ships thereabouts, or 4 times the speed of some of the slower ships. So
that's not like special, oh, you have to go into warp. That's just you turn this mode on and you can accelerate to 1,000 meters a second.
Right, but you lose a huge amount of control, and that means you become very predictable in your movement paths. Specifically, you're not able to turn faster than your velocity vector can turn, which means that you're going to turn very slowly because right now you can overturn your velocity vector. So what that means for people that aren't familiar with it is that if you're flying straight and let's say you want to pull up to do, as if you're flying a plane and you want to, bank to go up. You're flying along straight, and then currently in Star Citizen, if you pull really hard, your velocity vector will still be going in the same direction you were going and slowly adjust to the new vector that you're going in, which is now up. Let's say straight up for the purposes of this demonstration. In the new mode, the cruise mode, you will only be able to turn as slow as it's able to adjust your velocity vector. So that is much, much slower. Right now, you get that sliding effect when you turn faster than your velocity vector can catch up with you. And in cruise mode, that is going to be much diminished. You're not going to have a sliding effect at all. That is going to make a big difference. And that means, like I said, you're going to be very easy to hit if you're going in that mode. So it might not be the... And it takes a long time to reach that maximum velocity. It says 15 to 20 plus seconds here. So that means you are going to be relatively easy to hit while you're souping up by anybody behind you. So that's not necessarily going to be the get out of jail free card automatically. And then the quantum jump that we talked about before, and we've seen that in action, although I will point out that this paragraph seems to imply that you will have some semblance of control even while you are in the quantum jump, quantum travel mode, rather than I interpreted it originally from the videos as you pick a thing that you're traveling to and the computer will travel you there and you don't get a say in where you're going while you're traveling. But this says, at these speed, tiny variations in angle will result in massively different flight paths, so this is where slower ships will have the chance to escape a faster ship accosting them. Of course, traveling at these incredible speeds is quite dangerous, so the ship computer will automatically pull you out if there's a collision detector or the ship has any down shields.
Yeah, and
it's
you're
hard
also
to
going to
say.
be dealing. You're also going to be dealing in quantum drive with, you can't make big adjustings. It won't let you turn your nose straight down while you're flying at 0.2c. It's going to have to be a tiny little tweak, which is fine. I mean, that's incredible that you're going to be able to do that. Just a tiny adjusting, and someone will miss you by 3 kilometers.
Yeah, so I guess maybe what they're talking about with missing you is you can pick a spot in space. You probably don't have to pick a particular celestial object. You can probably just say, I want a quantum leap in this direction now, and it'll take some certain amount of time to spool up, because it's not supposed to be a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Specifically say, I want to go to this object.
Oh, yes. It also appears that's the case as well. But I think... basically the idea, version. I think if you go into quantum leap and your opponent doesn't know where you're going, they won't be able to follow you, is the idea. But getting into quantum leap is difficult because A, it takes time, B, if your shields are down, you can't do it. So those are things to consider. So
you can only go into quantum leap if you've nicknamed your ship Ziggy as well.
Yeah. That's not the only thing we nickname around here. Hey-oh. All right, so anyway...
Wow, that just took an unusual turn.
Those are all things that we kind of knew about, right? In CitizenCon, they talked about all these things. Here are the big changes that they discuss in this article. So in the space combat mode, the way that it currently works, and I'll try to pull this up and explain it the way that I think that they explained it here. This is the kind of model that they had originally. The blue line here is acceleration and the red line is velocity. It's essentially an exponentially damped motion curve, if that makes any sense. The idea being that at the beginning of your acceleration, if you're accelerating from 0 to your max, at the beginning, your acceleration starts low, then ramps up very quickly, but then your acceleration drops off, meaning that your ship, the speed at which it is gaining speed, drops off over time. So you'll go now, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% of your speed. So that's essentially what this curve looks like.
That is actually a relatively quick drop off too on the acceleration curve.
Very, very quick.
Now, this doesn't take into account the way that they have a capped acceleration in the game, which is what this graph does. So this graph caps that, so it still does the same kind of thing. It just gives a slightly slower curve to accommodate the fact that humans are meat bags that can't take G-forces well. So you still get the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. That effect where you kind of feel like it's taking longer and longer to get that next meter per second, which is exactly correct. Now, when you're speeding up, this doesn't get noticed as much as when you're slowing down. The time it takes you to finally stop is similar because that's just another form of acceleration. It's acceleration in the opposite direction because it's slowing you down. It's deceleration. So what that results in is the controls at those extreme ends of acceleration and deceleration feel very sloppy. It feels like I'm trying to get to 0 and it's just taking so long. I told you to go to 0 so long ago. And at first it felt like it was responding very snappily and then it just slowed down. And so that's what people have complained about. So that's what they're attempting to fix. That's the problem that they're attempting to address here. And they're going to do that by using what's called third-order motion. And I don't know the math behind it, but I know that the idea is...
Behold, the formula's right there.
There is the formula right here, yes. If you just look at the acceleration as a equals a0 plus j times t, and velocity is v0 plus a0 times t plus 1 over 2 times j times t to the second.
And you lost 3/4.
1/2 jt squared.
jt squared.
1/2 jt squared. Come on now.
I was trying to make it sound more technical.
Damn
it!
Yeah, that's true.
I was trying to turn this away from
editor.
Mathcast. So anyway, the idea with this one is that the tail end of those is going to feel much more snappy. Like once you get going up there, your acceleration is going to keep you getting to your max, either acceleration or deceleration, at a speedy rate, I guess you could say.
At a speed.
With accelerating
with a
changes
high
in
delta
acceleration speed.
Now, it's interesting actually with this. The third order motion actually approaches its top speed at almost exactly the same time as exponentially dampened motion, or damped rather.
But it probably feels better the whole time throughout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a little... Your velocity is going to take more time to ramp up at the beginning, which is a really important thing, actually, that folks should note. With this third-order motion, it will take you longer to accelerate at first than it does right now.
Which is...
So...
Oh, you know what just occurred to me? What that means is... You're going to need...
into rocks.
No, it's like a shark. Well, I guess that's true. It's
like
a shark.
Here we go, folks.
Sharks have to keep swimming in order to not die, right? They have to keep swimming.
Depends on the shark.
I know it depends on that's the thing, though, right? That they have to keep passing water over their gills. Some fish can stay in one place, and they have muscles that they can try to like breathe the water in essentially and just feed it through their gills.
Yeah.
But there are certain sharks that must keep swimming or they die because they don't have the same evolved trait. But if you are dead in the water, if you like stop going forward in order to turn around and go a different direction, it takes you longer to get going. So that is like death in any combat situation. You don't want to slow down to almost zero, because in the past you could get going quickly again. Now it's slower to get going. So you're like a shark. You can't stay still or you're dead.
It will behoove you to bank instead of starting and stopping.
Yes. And what that means is your spaceship is
Like
going to
a
fly more like a World War II fighter, which can't stop. It has to keep going forward. And we're back to World War II fighters again. Thank you, Chris. You've done it. You've turned math.
The Vietnam era helicopter combat. Now we're going back to World War II.
This is 6 degrees of World War II fighters with Star Citizen.
Or hear me out. Shark combat.
Shark
Okay,
combat.
all right.
Yes.
Wait, no, there's an FPS for that. If you want to play that, that game's already
Oh,
out.
that's
that
right.
Sailed.
Land Sharks? What was that?
Giants
Interstellar
versus
Marine.
Sharks.
Interstellar Marine. For those of you playing the home game.
So I suspect what
if you
the better
would like to have nightmares.
like a shark is good.
That's
The
true.
hell are you looking at?
This is from Interstellar Marine.
Okay, all right. I'm hip.
This
I'm
is not
jiggy.
what you were referring to?
No. There is literally a divers versus sharks game out there too.
Oh.
It
thought we were
was
talking
on sale
about-
on Steam for like $2 a couple weeks back.
This
So this looks terrifying, so hooray.
this is
For the makers of Binding of Isaac, we have Interstellar Marine. What's going
no,
on here?
Interstellar Marine was also it was like the Star Citizen project for FPS before its time.
Marine.
They wanted to do a crowd-funded AAA game. They could not get the. I think they had a
So this
Kickstarter and it
is-
failed. They're still developing it.
Okay.
I have the alpha
Alright.
like access on Steam, but to say that their rate of advance compared to Star Citizen is like a shark not moving in the water is probably the best way to explain it. They don't
it's
seem
dead
to
in
be
the
as
water.
talented as the team that Chris has put together.
It's the No Man's Sky of shark combat.
Sure. Anyway, back to math. I never thought I'd be so
Procedurally
happy to get
generated
back to
shark
math.
combat.
So anyway,
So it makes me wonder if some of the upgrades you'll be able to purchase for your ships in game will change this third order motion control. If I want to build my own helicopter version of the M50, will that be an option, or will it change based on the ship? Will this make the Xi'an Scout a truly unique flying experience when I don't have to worry about that kind of acceleration graph?
I think this is going to more be about the ship. Because, the acceleration curve, it could be third order motion for every one of these ships. They could have the exact... Oh, God, Bridger.
somebody in the
Why
chat did
is it a
that.
pony shark?
Somebody
Why
in the
did you
chat
do-
did
oh,
that.
no.
It's not me.
My Little Pony, My Little Pony.
It's very unusual.
Wow.
Anyway,
Anyway.
link to that in the show notes for those of you
can
that are like,
have-
what the hell is going on? I'll put it right here at the bottom.
Oh, God.
Pony
Oh,
shark.
that's life-changing. This acceleration curve, yeah, sure, your acceleration... you look at the velocity, and you look at the velocity uptick, and you look at the acceleration right there. It's possible that the max acceleration might not be 20 for your Xi'an Scout. It might be 60, on this weird graph.
Yeah.
Right,
And it
so
could
that,
do that in the
yeah.
same
let's
time
get to
frame.
the next.
Yeah.
Let's get to the next important piece, which is let's see, second order motion with a box. Ideal.
What
Oh,
they
this
won't
is
be
interesting.
doing, yeah.
So let's talk about this first. We're on graphs. Let's talk about this. So this is showing one of the other new features of the game. Right now, the game feels like a game.
Mm-hmm.
Duh, right? You're saying, but the idea is they want this to feel like a simulation of reality, not like a game. And in games, everything works perfectly all the time unless it takes damage. And the idea is, in reality, things don't work perfectly all the time. So what they're doing is really interesting. Instead of having your velocity and your thrust essentially just always be perfect unless it takes damage, they're adding little tiny pieces of error to
Yes.
the way that the things move, and then having the ship itself account for those errors and make adjustments. So this is like an extreme version of what your ship curve might look like because of errors. And so instead of like on a very smooth acceleration, just starting from 10, 20, 30, 40, this example would be like 10, 15, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 40, 45, 50, 50, 55, 60. It's like this almost a jerky nature to it, right? So if this is it with errors, then your ship goes and takes that chart and accounts for it and makes changes to its current thrust to bring it more in line with what it's trying to do, which makes an almost perfect representation, but just off a little bit, which means that the ships will feel like they are physical things that aren't perfect, which is the goal of this new system. It's intervening, adding a tiny bit of turbulence to the way that the game renders the ships, with the idea being it's going to add to your immersion without deflecting from your ability to shoot things accurately.
So you're fuzzing the acceleration to change what the ultimate velocity looks like. And what Jim in our YouTube chat pointed out is this could be a good way to combat some of the over-scripting shenanigans we referenced to earlier about immediately stopping and spinning it into place and parking your ship in the perfect mini. Yeah, see?
Somebody has to do that now before they add this new feature. All right, so that all having been said, the elephant in the room, the thing that we haven't said yet, is the way they calculate maximum velocity is changing. And the way this is changing, Gray, this is really interesting. Tell us, how exactly are we going to figure out how fast our ships go now?
It has to do with your thrust values and your weight. So
well, that sounds way simpler than I just made it out to be.
I mean, in effect, they're going to be doing that calculation based on your ability to stop, the orientation of the thrusters, your ability to turn properly, and your ability to come to a stop in what we'll call a safe time. And that varies based on the ship, which varies the speed, which so on and so forth. So that's going to make it a really interesting thing when you start dealing with, well, how quickly can a 350R stop versus an M50? And how quickly can they stop if you turn around backwards?
How quickly will your Aurora jettison its cargo in order to get better maneuverability in combat? Because I think the Aurora, because I think of that giant cargo thing on the back in comparison to the size of the actual fighter, compared to, like, that's probably the biggest cargo to ship ratio of anything outside of like a hull D or E.
That's a good point.
So
the Aurora does move a lot for its size.
So the thing that I got out of this is
it's the mode, the top speed is set according. This is their quote: in SCM mode, SCM being space combat maneuvering, your top speed is set according to your ability to accelerate to a given velocity in a set time. So what that's saying is how quick, if you can go that quickly to go or to speed up, how quickly can you slow down with that?
Right, the slow down is the main limiting factor in fiction, right? The ship is only going to let you go so fast that you can come to a stop with your current thrusters and engines within a given time frame. So if you upgrade your thrusters and engines, your ship will let you go faster because it knows that you can still do so safely.
And that will actually also mean power allocation will matter.
Ooh,
if
good
you have
point.
more power set to your thrusters, to your maneuvering thrusters specifically, you're going to be able to go faster. For the first time in Star Citizen's history, putting more power to your movement thrusters will mean you go faster. And you get there faster, which is pretty cool.
That's true. Now, the other piece to this is further down in this article, they called it goodwill shunting.
Yeah, I saw that.
Comes up with these. Anyway, they're changing the way that thrusters work in general. The way that the game currently has thrusters working is that your main thrusters, as well as all of those different maneuvering thrusters, had their own little engines powering them for all intents and purposes. Now, the way that it's going to work is all thrust is generated in the main engine, and it's shunted out one thruster or another or multiples at the same time in varying amounts. The thruster itself can control how much can go out of it, but it will have a maximum sustainable thrust out of a given nozzle because it has heat and power limits, I believe is what they wrote here.
Well, heat's a big thing, and you're going to have problems with overheating thrusters and that kind of thing now. And we've already seen it with things like the Retaliator. In the 2.0 demos we've seen system overheating warnings.
Yeah. I wonder, that would be really interesting. If you're boosting a thruster too often, that it will just shut down so that you don't destroy it. And now your thruster's shut down because it's got to be cooled for the next 10 seconds or something. That would make your ship fly way different for a temporary period of time. I'd love to see that kind of a mechanic, because that's like a push your luck mechanic, right? It's how fast and hard do you want to push the maneuvering thrusters if you're in like a turning war with somebody, right? That would be really interesting. But anyway,
can I disable those safeties if I really, really want to?
There you go.
Tuning's going to be the question.
Yeah.
How much of this main engine thrust is coming from the power plant, which is also taking care of things like life support, weapons systems,
I think it's all coming from the power plant, but that goes back to what Gray was saying, is that when you assign power to a certain thing, that's how it's being assigned. So the engine, when you assign a certain percentage of the engine to thrust, it's either going to be going out many of the different thrust nozzles that you have in your ship, either the main thrusters in the back or a combination of the maneuvering thrusters and the main thruster, or just the maneuvering thrusters. So that is a really interesting element to it.
Okay. So we can put it at 50%, and that means that at any given point we can put 50% towards maneuvering or towards main thrust, depending on what we need at the time.
Yeah.
But in the end, that 50% means you're not going to shoot your energy weapons quite so viciously and with that much power behind them.
I want a dynamic AI that will know that when I pull the trigger, I want all the power to go to weapons. And then when I start turning, I want all the power to go to the engine.
Sounds like voice attack to me.
You're right.
Yeah.
It does.
I'm sure there will be people who script to do that.
Oh, you're right. So they if they fire their weapons, that means that those changes have to be done over time. So that if they're instantaneous, you're right. People can just immediately script stuff. So that when they turn...
I think it'll probably be a ramp up with the pipe system.
Yeah,
we'll
you're
see
right.
a couple of
You're
seconds to force that to happen. Now, that may mean
it'll
people
feel
still
analog.
Script. People may still script just to make sure that, if I hold down the trigger, I want to make sure it just keeps throwing that power to weapons.
Yeah.
But then they're going to slow down to a crawl, and they're going to get wrecked every time they pull the trigger, which is going to be hilarious.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So... looking at the other major change here is boost is still going to boost your thrust period, means your maneuvering thrusters. But what that means is if you're holding boost, your maneuvering thrusters can accelerate you and decelerate you faster, which what we've just learned now determines your maximum speed. So what that means is you can have an effect of your boost called afterburner turned on or turned off. And afterburner means that you can leave your boost held down and it will affect your maximum velocity of your ship. So if you're trying to chase somebody, you'd go into afterburn mode to catch up to them and spend your boost to improve your ship's velocity. As long as you're boosting, then you're continuing to keep your velocity up, but it uses your boost up at a fast rate, obviously, and then you might not have it later when you need it to change direction quickly.
Yeah.
So that's another really interesting piece. And now this is all sort of coming together. The flight model that they describe here and all the things that we just talked about really do feel like more the thing that I expected when I first backed this game. And it's all starting to come together.
And we're finally starting to see an actual space sim come out of it as opposed to a dogfighting module. Something more akin to Freelancer than... the original Wing Commander, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So, we're getting to the point now where we can safely say it will have a release date in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like a lot of this tuning is probably already pretty close to done. At least on their internal builds to get the flight model stuff testing.
All right.
I think what we're going to be seeing most of the time is, there's a weekly report that got linked. It's in our show notes here. The weekly development update for 15058. So that would have been 2 days ago. That was a really interesting piece talking about the blocking issues right now and the problems they're having with just the networking and getting all that stuff going. That's what we're waiting on right now. We're just trying to get to a point where we actually can see the network optimization and see, ships actually not ending up inside of each other when they go to the same destination. It has some work to go on that before it's really to a point where players can test and it'll be useful. But I think you're right. We are seeing a point where we're feeling that release come together.
Yeah, so, man, there's so many cool things. Let me see, anything else that I missed here while I was looking through this? Okay, no, I think we covered everything in this flight model changes. But there is one more piece. I don't know if you guys saw this video. The UI update to the ship.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
It looks really slick. At least the sort of mouse-based interface. And at first, when I was watching this, you look, and when they go down to sort of the main computer on the bottom where you can change a bunch of things, it zooms way in on that main computer, and I'm like, but now I can't see where I'm going. And I'm like, you know what? If I was in an actual spaceship and I was trying to concentrate on, tapping a screen with a push-button interface, yeah, you know what? I would have a hard time looking up the window and at the main computer screen as well. So that's actually not only usable, but it makes sense to some degree.
It does, and what I look forward to is when we get with the bigger ships and what the UI looks like at these individual stations, and if they have something like that holoverse that we were talking about a long time ago, the holosphere, where you could direct things along those lines.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a step up even from this, which this is really cool. I mean, I really like the ship UI in progress. And I think that it'll be a step up even from this with these specialized stations or with like the field commander view where you see where ships are going and can direct things along those lines. So this is very much what I was kind of expecting when I was thinking of the UI, because this is, in my opinion, a step above what Elite Dangerous has at release. Whereas prior to this point, we haven't been quite there yet. So we'll see what they end up putting out there, but this should be pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, and there is a good link in the show notes to this directly to the Vimeo if you want to check that out. Again, that's on talesofshow.com.
Such a cool thing that they're doing with this. It's going to feel like your ship is more yours. When you finally have that ability to sit down and say, okay, this is my control panel. And I wonder, there's a part of me that wonders a lot, actually, how much of this are they going to duplicate on the touch screen for their joystick?
That's an interesting question. I was just thinking, I would love to have the ability to have like an iPad or like a Nexus 10 or something in front of me when I'm at one of the ship's systems, because there was, and let me see if I can find it. I mean, I think we've talked about Artemis Bridge Simulator in the past on here. This is the one. I did actually play Artemis Bridge Simulator once. And let me bring this up here.
That one time.
That one time. And one of the most enjoyable stations was this station. It's the engineering station.
Oh,
you control the damage repair crews. Like, all of these blue things would be red if they were damaged, and you could say where the damage control party should go. But then on the bottom here, you have the different powers. So you're Scotty down here. You're sending extra power to the primary beam or extra power to the torpedoes or what have you. But the challenge here was that you had a certain amount of coolant to play with, and that's what all these little yellow dots were on the side.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't put maximum coolant on everything. So you could overclock any number of these things, like overclock your maneuvering, overclock your front shields, but you would have to add extra coolant to compensate, and so you were moving the coolant around to different things as you needed them more, and it was a really interesting sort of mini game to play while everybody else was playing different things, like, you know, somebody else was the helm, somebody else was the captain, et cetera, et cetera. But this was by far the most fun, and in part because the guy who had set it up had it on an iPad interface. You could like just touch and drag these things with your finger, which is way easier and faster and more intuitive than trying to click and drag with the mouse. So I would say if they could figure out some way to make these kinds of stations available on like an iPad touch interface when you're sitting at them in the game, because nobody has a touch, very few people have a touch monitor, but plenty of people have an iPad sitting around. And I know that they did something similar in Battlefield where they got you hooked in as a commander and those kind of things. But if you could like sign into the Star Citizen app on iPad, it would just put that screen on your iPad or something, that would be amazing.
I mean, they're going to have some way to basically export ship controls to a touch screen for the SciTech, because they did confirm that screen was going to display Star Citizen UI specific stuff. So there's going to have to be some sort of software involved with that. The question is how difficult that's going to be to port to Android and to iPad.
And how much can you put on there?
You have two problems, because porting software used for proprietary control, that will be tricky as hell to get from one to the other, unless it's already unless their SciTech controller is built in with Android at the core, or it won't be iOS. I hate to break it to you.
It might be pretty. I hate iOS anyway. It might be pretty easy for them to do that. Just something that's basically a Java interface, because that's all Android is.
Well,
sitting. Okay, it's a really crappy Java interface. I've written
apps for Android devices. It is not pure.
No.
Okay, it is Java. It's definitely a Java extension, but
I get it. I have two, and it's miserable.
Yeah,
but it is Java, so that gives you a platform to start from.
True.
So if they went with something that was sort of pseudo Java based, purely as a thought, in the SciTech thing for that interaction, at least it would give them a baseline if they wanted to port that software out and charge $2 a pop for people to download it to whatever they're doing.
Very true. But the other issue,
money that prints itself, as long as the hours don't take too long.
That's true. But the other issue you're going to encounter is one of latency. When you're running over any 802.11 whatever wireless network, because it won't be wired up. When I move this, if I'm moving my shields around, I need it to move my shields around. I don't want to wait 3 seconds and see it show up at the other side. And there aren't many wired Android devices out there.
No, but is the wireless really that much higher in latency? I know AC is really, really fast. I don't think N has that big of a latency difference.
It shouldn't.
It's still a radio wave. It's moving at the speed of light.
But to give you an example, if I'm running this in my office and someone turns on the microwave in the kitchen, I will start to drop packets because they are conflicting resources for the same spectrum.
Well, then you shouldn't have a microwave in your house. You're trying to play Star Citizen
if I'm in an apartment building and I've got 5 or 6 people around me, the point is you get very noisy spectrum very quickly. It causes all kinds of latency issues and concerns. They'd have to account for that somehow, or they're going to sell a product that will receive a lot of complaints. People don't understand why their spectrum is noisy. There is an argument made for not caring and just going through and doing that. But at the same time, I'm not sure. I would say like their dedicated controller doing this makes a lot of sense. On a touchscreen, maybe something like prices for the trading game, where you can move things around, or you can put an order in for X number of self-sealing stem bolts, or whatever you're going to do. A Star Trek reference there for those of you who are in the know. We'll see. It could be really cool. I've not seen a whole lot from them about what they want to do with any kind of Android tie-in. So,
and actually, Avi in chat made a valid point. The latency will be relatively small compared to the latency to the server.
It could be. It depends on how noisy your spectrum is.
Yes.
I guess that's
hopefully it's not too bad.
So
but I could still see it working.
The last thing I wanted to discuss is something that I couldn't find easily before the show, but somebody in the YouTube chat, I think James Brand, thank you for pointing that out. It is the Freelancer sneak peek, and I actually have not seen this, so let's take a quick look.
What a pretty thing they're doing to this ship. I still love the Freelancer. It's needed this kind of push for a while now, and I think this brings it much more in line with the Starfarer as far as level of detail is concerned.
Yeah, it's needed that for a while, unfortunately.
Yes.
So it's just a very little sneak peek, just a little sneak peek.
But we know they actually told us that's the next one in the pipe.
That's great.
So once 2.0 is out, we'll have the Connie, flying. We'll have the Retaliator flying. The next bigger ship they expect to have flying is that Freelancer, and that's cool.
All right.
I could definitely see that being a good thing. Oh, speaking of ships, I know this isn't in the show notes. It looks like we've got a concept sale coming for the Crucible.
Really?
With the anniversary sale. That's the repair ship.
Are we back to musical theater?
Yes, but there's no theater about. Well, they didn't make a musical of the Crucible, did they? Because that would be
saying if they haven't,
horrible.
They should.
That would be horrible.
No, they definitely will be apparently putting that concept out during next week sometime, I guess, or a week after. I don't know. It'll be during the anniversary, they were saying, I guess. And then we're also looking at potentially one or two more. So I'm curious to see what that ends up being.
All right. I've got links to the Freelancer sneak peek. It's 46 minutes into the 2.07 Around the Verse episode. So if you want to check that out, links in the show notes, talesofshow.com, or the doobly-doo of the YouTube. So I think that's all I had for the month here. So I think we're going to be wrapping up the show. Any other things that you guys can remember from the past month that we may have missed?
There's been a lot of news just coming out in the way of blockers. And I want to point out to some folks, our listeners, who may not be programmers. This sounds really scary when someone comes out and says there are 900 blockers. In fact, to some folks in our Slack chat, by the way, Legacy has a Slack chat. Anybody's welcome if you want to come. We love chatting with folks.
They even let me be on there. Yeah.
Aegitos is in there, our astrophysicist fellow in Australia. You can summon him by saying science, and he'll just show up. Please let us know if you want to join. Regardless, we've had some folks in there, again, not programmers, who heard we have 900 blockers a couple of weeks back and went, we're never going to get the game. This is awful. Everything is on fire. We're all going to die. To a programmer, 900 blockers sounds like your average week. It's a sucky week, but your average week sucks.
Yeah,
that's true.
So when you're looking at these things and you're saying, oh, they got this big list of blockers, they're saying they have all these problems, why do these things keep coming up? This is how coding works. It's the unfortunate reality of this profession sucks. It's something that you get stuck with these sorts of problems on a day-to-day basis, and they take time and they stack up. But fixing one of them might fix 600 problems.
Well, there is an age-old song that addresses this, and it goes something like this: 99 little bugs in the code, 99 little bugs. Take one down, patch it around. 127 little bugs. So.
Yes. Yes.
Bear that in mind. And for reference, as a programmer, I'm going to say, especially one who manages other programmers, your average week does not suck. If you piss me off, your week will suck.
Yes.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah. All right. I think that ends our show. Threatening the listeners, always a good
bingo. All right.
That's a bingo.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And remember, land sharks are real, and they're scary. Don't piss them off. Remember, the show is moving. Talesofshow.com is the new domain, and you're going to need to update your feed sometime in the next month or so. So keep that in mind. The Tales of Show will have the feed there, and you'll be able to get that. By the time this audio feed goes out, I'll have that set. So thanks, guys, for watching. Signing off here. Also, thanks for listening. You don't have to just watch. You can listen too. But
give you
seriously,
hours
these
of free
shark things
entertainment.
you didn't know anything about the, and I have to redo all of
No,
these.
I had no idea. I was thinking of apparently the FPS game called Depth,
I
where
see. Oh,
you have
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
divers, yeah, and there's one shark controlled by their player or the AI, and yeah.
So, you may have noticed that all of my desktop things are screwed up. I did not realize that because I got a new monitor, I have to redo all of these sources
Oh,
because
yes.
I no longer need desktop region 1401 by 997. I now need to go much wider.
You're just leaving the sharks there. You're just gonna expose us to that. Oh, thank you.
Well, he's waiting for the animation to come in where they mate.
Sure. Yeah, this is actually a GIF. No, but
Oh.
I did. I got a new. I've been on a 1680 by 1050 monitor for a long time, and while I maintain the superiority of a 16 by 10 monitor over a 16 by 9, I have been defeated in the world of everything. So I
you've been
had to get a
defeated by
1080p
reality.
monitor
Yes.
because
Finally
yes.
fixed it up. That's good. Which
And
one did you go? Did you actually go for a G-Sync or?
No, I didn't
Aw.
because I realized.
Aw.
Well, I'm going through a capture card and I don't think it works. So I have my video output going into a capture card and then from there to my monitor. So
no,
it's
no,
capturing
it has
it and
to be a
passing it through.
direct-
Exactly.
it
That's
has to be
why
direct.
I also
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of money to deal
fair.
with. So and this one was on sale. It's $200 normally, and it was only $114 on a special Newegg
wow.
sale. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. It's an
1080p
IPS.
move is a really nice one.
It's an IPS monitor, which is a different technology that is still within the liquid crystal display. It's still an LCD technology, but it's a slightly
It stands
different.
for internally pretty shitty.
Does it? No, it's something pixel switching, internal
Yeah.
pixel switching. I don't remember what it was, but the idea is standard liquid crystal
Interlaced,
displays.
probably.
Standard liquid crystal displays are going to give you slightly better response times, but IPS liquid crystal displays are going to give you better contrast and colors because of the way the technology works. And I already had a 5 millisecond monitor, and this one says it was 5 milliseconds gray to gray, and that seems like a good number to me, so I'm going with it. But I know you can get, for the same money, you can get a regular LCD monitor with like a 2 millisecond response time or a 1 millisecond response time, which for
I'm gonna
gaming
post
matters
this in-
more.
I'm gonna post this in YouTube chat. This is actually what I can't post in YouTube chat, can I?
You can't post a link.
See,
But anything
Jim,
else
I
is
I'm gonna post it
did.
in,
Jim,
I'm gonna post
I-
it in Twitch chat then.
I
There we
wanted
go.
to get a 1920 by 1200. That's what I really wanted to get. But here's the other problem. This is the thing that throws another wrench into the works. I have a Steam Link now with my Steam controller.
Yep,
Bam.
same deal.
Cat doesn't agree.
No, apparently not. So I have a Steam Link now, and that connects to my 1080p projector in the other room, which projects onto my nice big 70-inch projection screen. But Steam Link uses your desktop resolution because your computer completely generates the signal. It's just sending it through to the Steam Link. And then that's going on to the projector. It's just a way to get your computer screen into a different room, right? So what that means is I had a 1680 by 1050 signal, so it's 1050 pixels tall, being stretched onto a by 1920 by 1080 pixels high image, and it made everything just a little bit fuzzy because it wasn't the native resolution. So if I had gotten a 1920 by 1200, it would have had to shrink it and still not be in the native resolution of the projector, and that would have made me very sad panda. So I had to get a 1920 by 1080. But on the upside, this monitor's an inch bigger, and I got an extra 30 pixels to play with on my north-south axis, and then like an extra 300 on my thing. Now, I did keep my nice monitor, and I'm using it on the right here, and I have enough room to fit both of you guys, plus the Twitch stream, plus both chats, plus my voice record audio. Let me. This is
It's
empty.
actually impressive how much real estate you end up with when you move over to a 1920 wide.
Well, this is my old monitor. The previous to this, so here you can see you guys. Previous to this, I had a 1440 by 900, and so that was my secondary monitor, and that was okay. But when I was streaming like this, 1440 by 900 was not enough real estate for all the things you see on your screen there. And it took a
Yeah.
lot of cajoling to get it to run right. So now I've got my 1680 by 1050 on the side here, which gave me an extra bunch of real estate, which was nice for my secondary
So
monitor.
that works nicely.
It
That's not a
does.
bad trick.
Yeah, plus that other one had a dead pixel in it, and that was really
gotta drive you
annoying for a
insane.
long time. But it was
Yeah.
my secondary monitor, so who cares? But now that one's going on sale, and nobody's going to buy it for more than like $20 because it's got a dead pixel in the middle of it. But go figure.
Yeah, I've got a 1440 by 900 set vertical as my
Ah.
right-hand side monitor, and that's actually what my camera's sitting on top of right now.
For
Ah,
reading,
okay.
I take it.
Yeah, for reading.
Yeah.
But let me
Coding.
let me
It's
see if
just
I
that
can
nice
show
long
you
screen.
where. Let me pull up. Let's see. Show notes will be over here.
One
So
day.
what I'm
One
trying
day
to
I'll clean my
do,
desk.
I want to try to show you the guys the difference between white on my new IPS monitor versus white on my old monitor. I thought my old monitor was fine. I was wrong. And I'm going to
Yeah.
see if I can do it. I'm going to see if I can show you the difference.
here we go.
I don't know if it'll come
Here
through
we
on the
go.
webcam, but let's find out.
Infinite Bridger loops.
Yeah, right? No, it's probably not going to come
no
through on the
difference
camera.
not coming through even remotely.
So that's
yeah.
the regular one. That's the old one. It's like
Well,
this.
it does look better.
That one.
Yeah,
What?
the camera kind of picks it up a little better, but it's not
Not
great.
great.
And this is
Yeah.
the damage to my walls from those shitty, stupid. I got like a pile of them over in the corner over there, just waiting to go back up. And then I've got another pile of them hiding behind that green screen. Oops, you
Nice.
can't see it there. Now there it is.
No.
It turned into what it was supposed to be all the
Turn
time.
it into the cockpit.
Okay, so yeah, that's the life in Bridgerland, and now this is all wrong. But here's the one problem. Let me pull this back again. You might not notice, but this has a very, very thin bezel. But
Yes.
and I wish I had a mirror so I could show you what the actual camera looks like. But when the camera sits on top of my screen, the camera is slightly down from the bezel, which didn't matter on the old monitor with a big bezel. But now
it's
I
blocking
can't.
your
It's
view.
blocking my tabs,
Yeah.
man. I can't
Yeah.
see where to close my tabs, so I got to leave it like this when I'm not gaming, pointed up at the screen, at the ceiling. Yeah. Hashtag new 1080p monitor problems, right?
Yeah, right after hashtag first world problems. Yep.
I don't know if that's right.
I think your office there with all the holes in the wall and the marks reminds me of that scene from Aliens where they're coming in through the ducts.
Yeah.
You need your auto gun there to shoot them down, and
Why is that weird now? I've gone and ruined everything.
that's well.
Oh well, it's not important. I'll figure it out later. All right.
So-
Anyway, this
So
this
to-
audio portion of Bridger tries to figure out what went wrong with his computer is brought to you by not.
It's brought to you by
Anybody.
Calathulu's Mechanical Keyboard.
Yeah,
Calathulu's Mechanical Keyboard. You didn't need to hear Bridger anyway.
All right.
Hey, I managed to make it very quiet during the show, which is impressive in and of itself.
For varying definitions of the word very
Quiet.
and quiet. I do live in
I
a
have to-
spaceship, Team Ace. I'm sorry. It was all a trick. These are all green screens around here, and the spaceship is the only real part.
Hey, but look at the plus side. I didn't wear my green screen shirt, which I may wear next time we do a show, just so you can see the Star Citizen logo through me.
Yeah, he'll have it tattooed onto his chest. Did you guys ever watch the old Heroes show?
No.
Not really.
Really?
No.
The first season had some rough
not your
parts.
podcast.
No,
The
not my
original
podcast.
Heroes.
The,
Yeah,
like
I
NBC
watched-
show.
I
watched the early
first
part of it, and
season
it
a
lost
lot.
me.
I liked it up until like the end where the guy goes nuclear. Yeah.
Well, I thought the first season was some of the finest overall plot writing
Yeah. The first
in
first
TV
few
that I've seen
episodes-
recently.
the first few episodes had a lot of issues. Then it got better. Then at the end of it, it kind of took a nosedive, and then season 2 happened, and I couldn't watch it.
Oh, season 2 got horrible. But there
Yeah,
were just
it was
some
awful.
really interesting things going on in that first season. Heroes Reborn recently launched, where they're basically relaunching the show 10 years into the future. And we started watching it. And so far, I'm not sure what to think about it. We'll see. They brought
I have
back
a
the
great-
characters that I
have
liked
a great
anyway.
quote here from one of my friends who was watching this last night. who has a penchant for some of the worst TV. I'm loving some of the worst TV I've ever seen. Quote, Heroes Reborn is testing even my high tolerance for middling to poor television. To which someone responded, I had to stop. It was killing my soul.
Well, that explains that.
Fair enough.
Oh, I finally figured out what was going on there. Callie.
Yes.
Look at this nonsense. You're incurring on me. Look, I have to put... No, that doesn't work. Oh, because it's a green screen. You're stupid. Okay, see, if I do this...
Okay.
If I do this, then it works. But because you
Also
are all
on a
the
green
way
screen.
over here with your... we can see, like, your workbench hiding on my monitor.
wide angle. Yeah, the
So when
the
I turn on the
sewing machine for
chroma,
leather,
you're incurring. So the only solution here...
Impinging. Is to put you ahead of me in the Z plane.
No, I tried that, but then it just let you get through anyway because it's a green screen. It's transparent. I would have to put the center bridge backdrop in front of you, or just make your view a little bit smaller, which is what I did. So yeah, I'll fix this the correct way by dragging
Making a
that
smaller
to
box.
there. Huzzah! Man, that was bugging the hell out of me. I finally figured it out. Okay, again, live Bridger debugging here. But yes, so that is good. The thing that still bugs me...
time?
Yeah, the thing that still bugs me is that the link doesn't have any easy way to watch things on, like, Netflix. You can kind of fudge it by, like, using the built-in browser to go to Netflix, but it's not as good as a dedicated app. So I really want that to happen. And I expect it to happen. It's just going to, they got to finish whatever they're doing. All right, let's call it a show. Shall we? Shall we call it a show?
I called it a show some time ago, to be honest with you.
All right.
Right around minute 45.
Well, right about the time when he started showing graphs, I was just done.
Yeah, I was like, all right. I do this at work. This is my fun time.
What the hell? Am I going
All
to work
right.
early tomorrow? I got to find out. I want time for Witcher 2. I want to go play The Witcher 2.
All right.
Well, the way to do that is to not check what time it is now, but simply to call it.
Oh.
Do our quick,
All right, let's do
quick
it.
update, talk to people about the development stuff, and we'll...
Oh, you guys have a meeting, don't you?
Split
I think.
off.
Yeah, have a
good one,
asked me about
everybody.
that.
Thanks,